me show you a video of Donald Trump being hilariously racist. Is that possible? I think it is. Watch.
Look at my African American over here. Look at him. Are you the greatest? Do you know what I'm talking about? Okay. So we have an African American guy at one of the rallies a month ago. And he's sitting there behaving.
So I'm going to explain to you why this isn't just about Donald Trump. It's about the entire Republican Party and why minorities have such a hard time voting for Republicans. You might not like that. You might think that that's unfair if you're a Republican, but let me explain at least why we think that way. But before we do any of that, we got to break down this hilarious clip from Trump. Everything is wrong with it. The Trump sign is hanging off the podium. He looks like a mess. And he's like, there's my African American. It's singular.
Look at my African American over here. Look at him.
He found one black guy who was going to be on his side, and he's like, hey, there he is, my sole African American. Now, these days, he's picked up a lot more momentum with African Americans. So we're the fairest show in America, so we tell you about that, and I'll tell you why that's happening as well. But then he goes on to say something that I think is worse. I mean, look, the patronizing way that he treats his one black supporter is already horrible, and yes, unintentionally hilarious. But then he says about the other black guy at a Trump rally, he was sitting there being well behaved.
And he's sitting there behaving.
Now, why would you even say that? Would you say that about a white person for no reason? An Asian person? Anyone else? Well, there was a white guy there and he was surprisingly well behaved. You would never say that, right? And I hope you don't say it about white people. I hope you don't say it about black people. But it's the mindset. So look, guys, I'm not calling Trump a racist so you don't vote for him. I'm not a standard establishment Democrat. I'm trying to break down our point of view, meaning all minorities, as to what's wrong with the right-wing way of thinking. And in fact, a lot of right-wingers have no idea that they actually think that way. Now, this is an old school clip that I'm going to show you. It's Fuzzy Zeller back from 1997 when he was at the Masters talking about how Tiger Woods was going to win. But as he thought he was trying to compliment him, I think he wound up saying this. Ouch.
Pretty impressive. Little boy's driving it well. He's putting well. He's doing everything it takes to win. So you know what you guys do when he gets in here? Pat him on the back, say congratulations, enjoy it, and tell him not to serve fried chicken next year. Got it. All right. Or collard greens or whatever the hell they serve.
Look, if you're not a minority, you might not even understand. Although, come on, it's been so long. Please understand. So when he calls him a little boy and then says, hey, maybe they'll serve fried chicken or collard greens, you might look at it if you're, grew up in that kind of mindset, you're old school. You'd be like, what do you mean? He was talking about how he's driving the ball well. Who cares that he called him a little boy? He was younger back then. Fried chicken and collard greens, isn't that what they eat? No, guys, when you make assumptions that, hey, black people are not normally going to be well behaved, but I found one that was, and call them boys, which is an old school derogatory term. And Fuzzy Zeller, I would be shocked if he didn't know that that was derogatory. What you're sending is subliminal clues to minorities. We're not really on your side. And so here, watch, I'm going to show you one more from Fox News, but then afterwards, I want to talk to you about what the Republicans chose to do and why it alienated people on a mass scale. But this Fox News clip, wait till the end and see what he says about this guy that he's trying to compliment. He brings up something for no reason that I want to discuss. Let's watch.
It's the deadline for San Diego city workers to get the COVID-19 vaccine or lose their job, putting public safety at risk as hundreds of the city's police officers remain unvaccinated. Joining me to react, a former San Diego police officer who quit ahead of the city's vaccine mandate, Brandon Gibson. Sir, you look jacked. You look like you could defend us in any way, shape, or form from anything that could potentially befall us. Why would we get rid of that? Because you won't take a vaccine? Because quite frankly, sir, if my family is in jeopardy and I see you come to the door, I don't give two you-know-whats whether you have a vaccine, what your race is, what your religion is. I don't care. I want that guy saving my life.
No matter what your race or religion is, if he was interviewing a white cop, would he have said, you know what, you look jacked and you look good and now you look like the kind of guy who would protect me? I don't even care what your race or religion is. Well, of course he wouldn't say that. You know he wouldn't say that because he's the same race, probably the same religion. But he sees a black guy and he's like, I don't even mind a black guy coming to my door as long as he's there to protect me. Okay? Am I not being merciful? Look at how generous I am. I don't even mind you coming to my door if you're going to save my life. Otherwise, I might mind you coming to my door, is the implication. Look, again, guys, I'm not looking for microaggressions and to call everybody racist, etc. I'm trying to get you to understand things that if you're a right winger, you might not even see, you might not have noticed any of those things. I hope you noticed how bad the Trump one was, though. Anyways, but guys, another thing you might not know, and I didn't know when I was growing up, and that's why I was a Republican. And if you didn't know that, yeah, I was. We came over from Turkey, my family did, and my dad was a small business owner, didn't like overregulation. Actually, we were partly chased out by communists in Turkey. So the country was not communist, but there was left-right fighting. So that we had a lot of reasons to be Republican. But one of the reasons that we were Republican, and I talk about this in my book, Justice is Coming, tyt.com/justice to get the book. And we'll put the link down below in the description box. But one of the reasons that I talk about it is because I wish the media had been honest with me. One of the things that I didn't know was the Southern strategy. The Southern strategy was Nixon's strategy, and I talked to the guy who came up with it. One of the authors of that strategy was Pat Buchanan, and I talked to him when we were both on MSNBC, and I was an anchor there. And he pretty much said, yeah, we had a nice 40-year run with it. So what did they have a run with? They decided that after Lyndon Johnson helped pass the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act, that the Democratic Party, which remember, used to be the party that was actually in favor of splitting the races, and the Republicans had freed the slaves, so the Republicans were the left-wing party on this issue earlier, and the Democrats, the Dixiecrats, were the racist right-wing party for a long, long time. But when Lyndon Johnson, a Democrat, switched and helped pass the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act, Nixon decided, oh, good, he's left all the racist voters in the South for us. We'll do the Southern strategy. Now, they even called it the Southern strategy. Was it because they were going to appeal to the South in other cultural ways? Oh my God, they've got the best peach cobbler, and we're just going to keep on talking about it. No, they're very clear. They were going to be the party against civil rights, against rights or any kind of payments going to African Americans. They were going to be against busing. They were going to be in favor of segregation, etc. They made an active decision to be the racist party. Now, by the way, that doesn't mean that if you're a Republican today that you're racist. Most Republicans today don't even know about the Southern strategy. Not only have most people never even heard about it, but even the folks who have heard about it in the media. Did the media ever explain to you what it was? That it was an explicitly racist strategy to try to get more votes in the South. By the way, look at what the Republican Party thought. Their planners thought the South in America is racist, and we will get more of their votes if we act racist like them. That is an incredibly callous calculation. So if I had known that when I came, my dad had known that when we came to this country, oh, by the way, that's the party that actively decided to go in that direction, we would have never been Republicans. In a sense, what you don't know is that mainstream media has been covering for the Republican Party for decades in this country. And if you're saying, oh, no way. No, guys, the media was very different pre-Trump. Now, after Trump, they are against Trump and Republicans who support him. That's clearly the case, right? But before that, they loved corporate Republicans and corporate Democrats. And that was basically the only type of Republican that existed. There were still some progressive Democrats, so we had a left-wing version of the Democratic Party, but the entire Republican Party was corporate-backed. And so the mainstream media in America loves corporate politicians. They love the status quo. Look, and you can see why. Because they're multi-billion-dollar corporations. If you're at the very top, you don't want anything changing. And if you're a multi-billion-dollar corporations, you love corporate rule. Mainstream media is basically the marketing arm of corporate rule. Now that's turned against Trump, etc., because they think, oh, Trump is just out for himself. You know, most of the other politicians are in our back pocket, and they'll do whatever we tell them. This Trump guy, he often does what we tell him, gives us giant corporate tax cuts, deregulates us, etc., but sometimes he doesn't just rob on our behalf, he robs on his own behalf. Well, we don't want that. We want a guy we can fully control. Look, I think Trump's monstrous in 100 different ways, including this way. I don't think that he's executing the Southern strategy. I think he just believes all these racial stereotypes. That's why he called the Puerto Ricans lazy during the hurricane that hit Puerto Rico. He goes into a room full of Republican Jewish business members, and he goes, no one likes to renegotiate more than this room. He's basically saying, you guys are schemers, and you never do what you're going to say. So he's making that assumption because they're Jewish, even though they're backing him. And yes, he's got a Jewish son-in-law and his daughter converted, etc. I'm not saying that he's an anti-Semite. He probably is, but that's not the important part here. What the important part is all these crazy old school racial stereotypes that are in his head. And unlike other politicians, he's not savvy enough to leave them inside his head. He has verbal diarrhea, so he just says blah. But in a sense, I appreciate it more because it's such a blunt instrument. It's so obvious that he has these racial thoughts in his head. The Central Park Five were five minority kids who were accused of this horrible rape in Central Park a long time in the 1980s in New York. It turns out they were innocent. They were exonerated. They caught the real guy and had his DNA on the crime scene, right? Trump's like, I don't care. They probably did something. They should be executed anyway. Brother, why do you think that they just did something? It was 5 white boys in the middle of Central Park that had come from a private school. Would he say, they probably did something anyway, execute them? Come on, guys, even if you're hardcore MAGA, you know he wouldn't have said that. You know he's saying it because they're minorities. But what I'm pointing out is that this is a bigger problem. The Republican Party chose to go in this direction, so Trump is the natural end to that evolution. Except this is a devolution. It goes this way, and they become an uglier and uglier version of themselves. So look, at this point, some minorities, including a lot of Latinos and now a significant portion of black males, are thinking of voting for Trump. Is that because they love Trump and they love the Republican Party? No. And is it because they know the Southern strategy but they don't care? No. The media never talks about the Southern strategy and that the Republicans chose to do this. No, it's because they're really dissatisfied with the Democratic Party. If the Democratic Party had delivered for them, whether it's things that are so specific to minorities like the voting rights proposals that they had, that they threw out there, and then Manchin and other Democrats said, no, okay, this doesn't give corporate tax cuts at all. I'm against it. And then Biden was like, yes, sir, of course, sir. Who cares about rights for African Americans, sir? We were just lying to them to get their votes for the 2 Georgia Senate seats and for my election. But most importantly, on economic issues, we don't deliver for young black males, we don't deliver for Latinos, but to be fair, the Democratic Party hasn't delivered for the average American in so long because they're so busy kissing up to their donors. And again, I write that in chapter 4. It's a devastating chapter about the Democratic Party and how it got taken over by corporate rule. Injustice is coming. Again, the link is below. But the main point, guys, here is, despite the fact that the Republicans ran the Southern strategy and the fact that they say these things that are subconsciously racist but obvious to minorities, I get it if they're not obvious to you if you're not a minority, and I don't, like I said, I don't care about the microaggressions. What I'm trying to point out to you is, as minorities, we clearly see this. We don't miss it. And especially if we know the history of the Republican Party, it makes it nearly impossible to support them, despite the fact that the Democrats have let us down so many times. Now, of course, there's both the Democratic and Republican Party can fix this easily. The Democrats can actually deliver for minority voters and all voters, in which case they would be a lot more popular. But that would require them to stop serving only their donors. And the Republicans can stop saying racist things. They can disavow the Southern strategy. To be fair, 2 RNC chairs, the chairs admitted they did it and apologized for it. But now under Trump, they've gone backwards. And they're like, no, never mind. We're not disavowing the Southern strategy. We're not admitting what the Southern strategy was. And they're going back to talking like this. But man, that also shows you the level of frustration minority voters have with the Democratic Party, that they're willing to consider not only the Republican Party, but a guy like Trump who so brazenly believes in stereotypes, to say the least, and points at black people and goes, there's my African American. And you'd be shocked to find out that there was a black guy who was well behaved. And even then they consider him because of how poorly the Democrats have delivered. Please, Democrats, fix it. Actually deliver for your voters. And Republicans, for God's sake, turn around. If the Republicans didn't say these things that were either overtly or subconsciously racist, and oftentimes over the top, they would win a ton of votes. They would probably win pretty easily if they just dropped the racism and kept everything else. And I don't agree with a lot of the other things that the Republicans are for at all, but I know that they could win if they weren't so over the top against minorities. So that's the state of both parties.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.